Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good.
You are live at Courtside with Lawman.
And Carmen B.
And again, we are here to talk about issues related to criminal law, to answer any questions that you have about the legal system or criminal issues. We're going to talk a little bit about our experience.
Yeah.
We invite you to type your questions into the chat or to call in at 916-443-5288. Again, that number 916-443-5288.
And remember, anytime we answer questions or answering issues, it does not create an attorney-client relationship with myself, lawman Keith Staten, or Carmen B, Carmen Butler. But we'll do the best we can to discuss all the issues you may have, anything that's on your mind, anything you want to talk about, especially when it comes to criminal law in the state of California.
Yes, this is an educational and an informational show. And so this is the one opportunity. A lot of times we have people that want to do consults that can cost money and usually does. We are giving you an opportunity to call in for free and get your questions answered. Whether it's a question, you don't have to identify yourself or say that the question is about you or a family member. You can just ask the question in a very general fashion.
And I think you can send in chats along the way, and we'll read your chat and we'll answer that.
Yes, you can type your questions and comments into the chat.
All right. And we're going to ask that you like us and stuff like that and tell us about other people or tell people about us, and so that we can get a bigger conversation going generally. So you want me to start off with a subject matter, Carl? Because we're going to bounce back and forth.
Sure.
And I think in any subject matter that we bring up, we both will be able to talk about completely. I was thinking that, first we should just tell them just a boot now about who we are, how we get here, where we're at. So I'll go first. Me, I'm from Vallejo, California. I came from San Francisco State to McGeorge School of Law to attend law school. After McGeorge, and after passing the bar, I worked for the public defender's office for a good solid year. In that 1 year time, after passing the bar, I was able to get ready for about 20 trials. I did about five jury trials. Up to that point, I'd been working in arraignment court, representing individuals with misdemeanors. My experience way goes back, just like Carmen's, a long time, to where we've watched a couple of generations come through as judges, as DAs, and things like that. And right now, or at least after I did my stint at the PDs, I went out pretty much in private practice on my own. I was there for about 6 years or so. And then I called myself retiring from criminal law and going to Department of Motor Vehicles for a little bit. I did a little 6 year stint there, but came back in almost 2001 and been dealing with criminal jury trials since. I have done probably, I call it 180 or so criminal jury trials. And
he is the master. Keith does a trial while he's doing a trial and wins.
At least in a row. I remember there have been times in the career when I think I went maybe, I don't know, a year and a half or so just doing trials, And so it was odd when COVID came and I actually went 2 years without doing a trial. It wasn't that odd, but it was odd. It felt really weird because for us, we spend so much time in the courts and in the courtrooms that it's almost our office. It is our office. And it feels odd when you're not there on a regular basis. So when COVID hit and we weren't doing trials and things, and then we Zoomed everything, it just felt really odd. You felt out of place. But as of today, I'm still going strong. I think I'm still in my prime, so to speak. I have a lot of knowledge about criminal law, justice system in general. And I'll tell you this, criminal law has allowed me a far better insight into people, how they act, how they react, what they do, why they do what they do. It definitely gives me an appreciation for those who are fortunate and less fortunate. Because in a way, like I always tell people, we can't judge people. We can't assume things about people. There have been, I tell you, one of the things that I've learned in my life, in my career, is that you've got to remain humble. And so when you win, you act like you've done it before. And when you lose, you know you've done it before, but you also hold your head up high, and you look with pride at what you've done, because you can only do the best you can do, and that's how we're usually judged. But I would say that I win a lot, and it's because of experience in different situations and how to feel out a case. I always brag that I can smell out a case. I can just feel what's happening and what went on, and what we should look for. My mind's always working like playing chess. I'm trying to visualize all the moves that if I make, who's going to make another. So I'm pretty thrilled to have this kind of career, and very, very blessed to be in the spot that I am in, because Lord knows I did not have to go down this road. So now I'm going to turn it over to my hero, one of the strongest ladies I know, Carmen B.
How did I end up here? I don't know. I was a little girl from Muskegon, Michigan, with some big dreams, and when I graduated from undergrad at Michigan State University, I applied. I couldn't apply to every law school that I wanted to go to. I had to choose a few. My parents were not rich by any means. Um, and I was recruited by the dean at McGeorge, the
At the
in
time,
fact, the
yeah.
dean of students at the time, and that's how I ended up halfway across the country here in California at McGeorge. And when I got to McGeorge, coming from small town Muskegon, and we're driving through the neighborhood, I said, I've been transported back to Muskegon. What is this? Oak Park looks somewhat like Muskegon, or at least it certainly did. You know, back all those many years
That's true.
ago.
Yeah.
And Keith is and has always been a mentor to me. We went to law school together. We were then both employed at the public defender's office together. I separated for a tiny bit and went and worked at the district attorney's office. But this is the man who told me that I could start my own practice and be successful doing that. He is responsible for that, and I give him the credit.
Oh, thank you, Carmen.
Yes.
Oh, tell them how good you are, Carmen.
Well, I am not going to toot my own horn. Um, I will say this. I can't promise, and I tell clients this all the time, I cannot promise what the outcome of your case is going to be, even when we have the best set of facts for defense. But I will fight the hardest to try and get the appropriate outcome. And in my mind, that's always to try and win. It doesn't always work out that way,
Yeah.
but it seems thus far to have worked out a majority of the time that way. And sometimes winning, you win in cases that don't go to trial in terms of getting such a great offer for your client that they can come back from having this criminal incident in their history.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want one, if we can get the case dismissed, we want that. If we can win the case, we want that. If we can't, if we can work out the best offer possible,
Yes.
we want that. We want the best outcome. And then once this is all over, we want to see our clients succeed. It feels absolutely amazing when I see someone that I've represented in the past and that person is doing well.
Absolutely. It is one of the most thrilling things, and I call them my success stories, or just my boys or my girls, or because I've gotten the opportunity to watch them actually change their lives completely around. and it's a beautiful thing to really see. It really is. And I'm sure we both has have wonderful stories, of clients, that just would it's made for TV stuff.
Yeah.
We can write books and books about it. And
There are clients that
yeah,
touch your heart.
true. Yeah, that you just bleed for, and you get miracle outcomes, it seems sometimes.
And
uh,
trial, I will say this, it is one part theater, but it is also an extremely emotional and stressful experience for the client because their freedom is usually on the line.
right.
And for us, because we're devoting so much of our energy into trying to get that win.
Yeah. And like she said, the win is not necessarily always winning in terms of a not guilty verdict. You can win some counts and not others. You can get some things dropped. And it is a myriad of wins. It really is. You got to put it in a perspective of what is a win, because sometimes a plea bargain in the middle of a trial is a win.
Yes.
And it's because something jumps up in trial that you didn't expect, and you exploit it properly, and bam, now all of a sudden, you
And
know,
sometimes it's about saving the amount of time that a client may have to serve. There are
right.
some cases where it is unfortunate, but the client is going to have to serve some time. And we want that time to be as minimal as possible, especially where the exposure is high.
Yeah.
And we've seen some high numbers, have
Oh,
we
yeah.
not? In this criminal justice system, you would not believe the numbers that someone could get sentenced to. We're
think,
talking triple digits with a life tail on the end,
yeah,
meaning unless that person comes back on appeal, they're never going to
yeah,
see the light of day.
yeah. I think my record, or at least the most, has to be about 535 years to life, and
Uh,
it's a series of robberies, basically. And so,
I have been lucky enough to not have to have anyone that I represented face those kind of triple digits, but I've seen them. I know that they exist.
yeah, and I mean, it can be all over the place. You can lose a misdemeanor, and it can be devastating to someone. Just like any life sentence. And you have to go into the case and prepare your client for that kind of stuff.
You do.
You
And
really do.
sometimes you have to prepare a client
Huh.
for the fact that even though they have never been in trouble before, the
Right.
evidence in the case against them is such, and the risk of what they face if they lose at trial is so great that a negotiated offer, even though it may be more than what they were hoping, is
Yeah.
the right outcome.
And I remember many battles where, I mean, that's why there are so many stories I can think of at over 5, 6 times where the battle was not just my client. It was that I learned somebody else in another venue got a deal in a same and similar situation, and I had to fight in my case to get that same thing by bringing it up. I've had great experiences with that. In fact, one of them was a case, and I mean, I'll tell you, this practice is biblical in a lot of ways. I feel I have been put in places where I've helped people, and I never thought that was going to happen. And I'll give a perfect example of this case. I'm coming back to Department 3 where misdemeanor arraignments were, and people would come up and they would plea and stuff. And for some reason, I had to go back to the department, and it was almost done. And the last case they were doing was this girl, and she was pleading, and she was up there crying and everything. And nobody was in the courtroom except for me and, the parties. And it turned out she pled guilty to having a gun in her suitcase because she was at the airport. She was flying a plane, had a gun in her suitcase. So she was pleading guilty. So the norm was 90 days and probation and stuff. But I was in court and I'm listening to this go down. And they were giving this girl diversion. And I was going, well, wait a minute. They never offered diversion. What's that all about? So I started just listening and
Meaning they
hanging
never
around.
offered diversion to any of your clients
Never,
on gun cases.
ever. They say they will not offer diversion. That is just out. So I just started listening.
Now we will state this. This was many years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. What I mean, they're not doing it now. I don't think either. But but many years ago, there were just rules. They would not let you have diversion or any kind of alternative sentencing in a way. You had to do like a 90 days or something.
On a possession of a gun case.
Right. Now, and this was a gun in a suitcase thing. So obviously somebody forgot to put it in, something like that. Right. But I'm just listening to the plea. And I listened to it. And like I said, she's crying. She's broken up over all of this. And I hear the diversion thing. And so what I do is I go and I pull her, I listen for her name, and I pull the calendar sheet just so I can have the stats about her case. The stats being the case number, the date filed, her name, all of that stuff. And I just kept it for some reason. I didn't run around and tell everybody, hey, guess what happened over here? I just held on to it because I felt, this could be used later, for some reason. And lo and behold, I swear, it had to be a year later. I had the same case, the same kind of situation. Now, I will tell you that she was a white girl. I will tell you my client was a black male. He was going through the courthouse and had a gun in his bag. He was a process server and he had to file documents too and grabbed the briefcase that he usually takes for process serving and ran down to the court because he had to file in time. 4:30 is the deadline usually. And he had the gun in the bag. So they prosecute him and he comes to me and I can't believe it because I'm going, oh, wait a minute. This is perfect. This is the perfect time now to bring that case up. And I did. I asked the DA quietly, please look at what happened to this young lady. Look in the system and see what she was offered. And I would like the same thing too. And they took time, they looked in, and they did come back and said, look, all right, fine. We'll give you diversion. But please don't tell a lot of people and stuff. Please don't let this out. Now, me, sometimes I can't keep a secret, and sometimes you shouldn't keep a secret. So whoever I could tell then, I would. But it's interesting because I was put in a spot to where if I hadn't have heard that go down, I would have never known that could benefit my client in the future.
That option was available because they weren't giving that option. And I think it's kind of speaks to the fact that was the very last case they were calling.
They were waiting.
Maybe they were purposely calling it at that time so that no one else would hear that this person was getting diversion.
Right.
Now, things have changed since then. I do believe that you can get diversion. I know that on gun cases, one thing that I've been able to get, especially where they're the actual registered owner of the gun, because let's distinguish that. If it is a gun where you are not the registered owner, that's slightly different than a case where you are the registered owner of the gun. In cases where it's the registered owner of the gun, there's no other criminal charges attached, and it appears pretty clear that they probably just forgot or made a mistake or coming home from the range. You are much more likely in this day and age to be able to get a dismissal. Your client may have to take some kind of course about gun safety.
I mean, they may be offering that now. I haven't had a straight up gun case.
Well, you probably
that wasn't illegal.
And that's a different story where the gun that you have is an illegal gun, a gun you
bought
off the street, that sort of thing.
Numbers are filed off, that kind of stuff. So, but it's just an instance where, thank goodness, I was put in that spot, for that one time to hear that one thing. So
in the chat, we have Zimbabwe Asafo. You both are the best and realistic attorneys the city has been blessed to have. Y'all fight for freedom.
Yes, ma'am.
And then Marianne, amen. You're absolutely right, Zimbabwe. We appreciate those comments. I want to talk about an incident that happened this past week.
Okay.
Actually, after the show, So after, yeah, that same day after the
Okay.
show, I
Oh,
think I
okay. That's
texted
right.
you
That's
about it.
right. Yes.
I had a client, a young man who called me and indicated that he was in another county. Law enforcement was surrounding his car and they were telling him to get out, and he was frightened and he was not going to get out of the car. I had to talk to him and calm him down and explain to him that he was going to have to exit that car, but that he would put his phone on speakerphone. He didn't have a iPhone, so he wasn't able to FaceTime with me. But I told him to put his phone on speakerphone, let the officers know that his attorney was on the phone, and then follow their instructions in terms of exiting the vehicle. Because what I saw potentially happening if he did not exit that vehicle was the situation was going to escalate, and we've seen in the news how that can happen. If he didn't get out of the car, he didn't open his window. Next thing you know, a flashlight's coming out, the windows being broken, glasses all over. I did not want that to happen. I calmed him down. We're going to make it through this situation. You let them know my name and that you are on the phone with your attorney. And then because I had him place me on speakerphone so that the officers could hear what I was saying as well. And I know that when you're in a stressful situation, you may forget the instructions that we have given to you. Am I free to leave? If I am not free to leave, here is my identification, my registration and insurance if you are driving, and no other comments. This officer, well, one of the officers that was there, his car was surrounded, so I think there were 3 or 4 officers that were present. Told him, "Well, we want to search your car. Is it okay if we search your car?" And he said, "Well, why do you want to?" No, no, no. You don't have a discussion with them about why they want to search your car. Tell them they do not have permission to search your car. Repeat that loudly so it is captured on their body cam. The officer then indicated that he had seen an open bottle, and so he suspected my client of being DUI and that my client had swerved all over the road. I explained to my client the only test that you have to take that DMV requires is a chemical test of your blood, breath, or urine. You do not have to do and do not do the walk and turn test, the alphabet test, the hold your head back and estimate 30 seconds test. You're not required to do any of those. And and the officer could hear me, but I was also telling him to repeat the only test I will take if you want me to take a test will be a chemical test of my blood, breath, or urine. Now, suddenly, the nature of the stop changed. The officer no longer was talking about DUI, and there was no open container in the car. Now, the officer was saying that he saw something white on the seat, and he suspected that there were drugs. And it just so happened that one of the officers was a canine officer and had his canine out. So now it's, well, my dog is alerting on your car, so I'm going to search to see if there are drugs. I said again, repeat that he doesn't have consent, but remember, he he may go ahead and attempt to violate your rights and search your car anyway using the dog, which the officer, because he heard I was on the phone, well, if my search is illegal, your attorney will be able to address that. And so then I said, let them, don't try and get up and try and interfere. Let them do their search. They did their search. There was absolutely nothing in the car. He was detained. I was on that phone call for a total of 32 minutes. So I believe the detention started probably about 5 minutes before he was able to get a hold of me. And it ended with them releasing him, releasing his passenger, whom they had actually placed in their patrol car, handcuffed. They never handcuffed my client. And then the officers just, well, drove away. So what happened to that? We think you're DUI. That was just a lie, right? But people will fall for that and they will argue with the officer, or they will agree to do those field sobriety tests.
Right.
And now you fail them because most people can't perform those tests, even if they are not intoxicated, because they're difficult tests to do unless you've actually sat down and practiced doing the tests. The officer can do them because he's practiced doing them. but they're difficult. And so if you try to do them, you're always going to lean a little bit, or you're going to estimate 25 seconds for 30 seconds. And then they will use those tests as the basis for now believing that you are intoxicated.
Yeah.
But because my client listened to me, that did not happen. And he got to leave that stop. He was detained and, of course, inconvenienced for that time period.
Right.
But I'd rather him be inconvenienced and alive and not arrested than anything else happen. And so I do tell my clients, but I will put it out there for anyone. If you are contacted by law enforcement and you are afraid in that situation, you can try and call us. My office number rings to my cell phone. So when this young man called me, it was actually it had to be about 10:30 at night. But I answer my phone because I never know. And because I've told people that they can call me, I try to answer my phone at all times. And I was actually out of town and I took that call because I care about what happens to people in the community. And we want these interactions to end
Right.
with everyone okay.
Right. Everybody live. Well, especially us, those who are under the gun, right? Those, it's our, they're going to judge us by the behavior of that moment. And a lot of times, you're upset. Like she said, you're going through emotions and things like that. And so you have to try to, first things first, calm down, remember the routine. Always calm down, remember the routine. You see, keep your head about you.
Yes, I will say there were several times during that incident where the officer tried to engage in chit chat with my client. Oh, you like football? No, no, no. There needs to be no other discussion. The officer said, well, I'm just trying to be civil. It seems kind of silly for us to just stand here and look at each other. You do your job. He's complying. There doesn't need to be chit chat. Do your job so we can get this over with.
Yeah. And the reason is because that chit chat would be viewed as consensual communication. And that you want to talk to the cop, and so he can slip in little other stuff. Then
where are you coming from? And
right.
I said, you do not need to answer where
Any
you
questions.
are coming from, where you are going. None of those questions are relevant.
Yep. I cannot stress it anymore that you've got to go look at Florida v. Royer. Florida v. Royer, Royer. That's all you got to put on Google. And you will find a 1983 case from the Supreme Court of the United States. And that case will tell you that you, as a citizen, have no obligation whatsoever to talk to officers to help their investigation. You could ignore what they're saying and walk away from them trying to talk to you. And that is not a crime. And they cannot use that as the basis for their detention. So the Supreme Court supports what we say. It's just that you have to exercise that right out on the street corner, out in the car. You see, you got to remember to exercise that right.
And if you're attempting to walk away, again, because we know that officers can behave in a way that they should not, right? Ask that question, am I free to leave?
Right.
And when my client asked that question, am I free to leave? The officer told him, no, you are not free to leave.
Right.
And I said, then if you are not free to leave, there needs to be no further conversation.
That's
you
right.
let him do his job, and your job is to be quiet.
That's right. And visualize everything. See everything. Try to memorize cars and names and things like that. People, whoever is coming, because you may need it later. So, just one thing about a DUI stop. I'll tell you this. Urine is no longer offered or used. They will not give you the opportunity to take a urine test. So it would be blood or breath. And of the two, please do blood. Because, and I'll just say this, when you blow into a machine, where does the air go? The air is not saved for next time for us to retest. The blood is a different whole vial. It can be retested. All kinds of things can go wrong with it because of its fermentation, things like that. So, and because when they draw blood and the way that they put it through a gas chromatograph machine, a lot of impurities may not be thrown out, and the amount can be off. So always do blood, and that's the only thing you have to do, unless you are on DUI probation. If you are on probation for DUI, it just means that you have to blow in the pass device if they ask you to do so.
So distinguish between what the pass device
Yes.
is and the breathalyzer.
The pass device is just what it says, PAS, preliminary alcohol screening device.
And that's the little device that they have right there
In the
on
car.
the scene.
Yes, they'll usually pull it out of the trunk.
But that is not the breathalyzer.
Right.
That is not the one that
Official
you
test.
are required to take.
Right. And now here's why I always say blood, though, because some pass devices, you can flip them into a mode to where they will print out the results. And so they become now official breath machines. So that's why you will say, no, I want to do blood, because blood is going to require a needle and a phlebotomist taking it out of you. If they say, you don't want to blow in this pass device, do you? Well, and it might be the official breath test device. See, and you can get fooled into refusing that, and they'll say that you refused that breath test.
You're saying the preliminary alcohol screening device is now used there, it has advanced to the point where it is now used as the official breathalyzer?
It can be certain models in certain jurisdictions, you see, but it's not all over. Most of them are going to be ones that do not have a printout.
So if they are on probation and as a condition of their probation, they are required to take the preliminary alcohol screening device, they must blow in that device at the scene. If they are not on probation, they do not have to blow into that preliminary alcohol screening device, but they do have to do either the breathalyzer or
blood test later. Yes. And you'll know, because when they pull out that device, if it's the true device that actually, will capture that, then they have to tell you that. They should tell you that this is the official test. And that's why you say, well, give me blood then, because I still won't trust the breath that you blow into that machine. And one of the reasons is because the officer can put it on what's called a manual trap mode, where the officer decides how much breath they actually take from you. So you're breathing and you're breathing and you're blowing and you're blowing, and the officer decides when to cut it off as to the sufficient amount of breath that is in the machine to be testing. And if it's so it's random in terms of how much breath that's actually used in the machine. So it's always safer and easier to do a blood test. Now, I know some people scared of blood, scared of needles and stuff like that, but it is just better to do it that way. You can challenge it better. So just to finish up on that little DUI stop stuff, okay? But everything else, the reindeer games that they have you do and all that, you can refuse all of those as long as, refuse them all, but just don't refuse the pass device.
By refusing them all, he's talking about the
other reindeer games, the HDN, the standing, Romberg.
Let your eyes follow my finger.
Right. You don't want to do any of those, but you will do an official test. That is what you want.
But that is a chemical test.
Exactly. So
we do have a question for one of our viewers. The governor signed a bill where they dropped 1, 2, and 3 year enhancements. Is this automatic, or does the person have to apply to have the enhancement dropped?
And I think, and what they're talking about, I believe, is the, how you would get the definitely the prison prior enhancements can no longer be applied. Like they could charge an extra year and create an enhancement because you have gone to prison before. And that would be a 1 year prison enhancement. And they've been coming back for years now. People who might have 2 or 3 that have been added onto a sentence, and now the law changed, and now they have to come back and have that removed.
I think that's only applicable, though, if their case was still pending appeal.
Yes.
So if their case was final, if it was no longer on appeal, that's not going to be applicable. And that is not all. I think there's some confusion. And that is not all 1 year enhancements. So, for example, if you have a 1 year enhancement based on the use of a weapon, that is
Oh, yeah.
not applicable to
Right. Because that's a
that.
different enhancement, a
Yes.
different reason for the enhancement.
Yes.
This one is pure prison prior.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
And
think
then
yeah.
the 5-year enhancements as
Right.
well. I believe the court has the ability to strike those 5-year enhancements.
And that was serious felonies or serious and violent felonies that they can use not only as strikes, but an extra 5-year enhancement. The court now can has discretion to not apply that 5-year enhancement.
Yes.
And CDCR was doing it on their own somewhat for individuals who came in when they were told to cut the population, the prison population. But now these things have become bills and assembly bills, Senate bills, and so it's been mandated by law.
Yes.
And the gun use.
That one has not. I think that one did not pass. The Assembly bill, I think, was 1509 regarding gun and great bodily injury enhancements. I do not believe that has been signed into law.
And I saw somewhere where, when we were talking last week on the SB2, the qualified immunity. Now,
regarding the
officers, technically not qualified immunity, I should say, but being able to be punished through a license that officers would have, so that other agencies would see that and hopefully preclude them from being employed by the next agency.
Basically, like any other
professional
licensed profession,
right.
Officers would have a license that could be revoked if they were found to have engaged in misconduct.
Yes. And I think I thought I saw somewhere that they had voted and it's gone either through committee or somewhere, the floor, and at least it's moving in a direction where it may be passed.
Yes.
And that could be significant. Really could be.
Miriam asks, will California have the DUI license plates? I don't know.
License plates.
I don't know what those are. Are those specific license plates in a state that identifies someone as having been a person who had a prior DUI? That seems kind of problematic. That kind of seems like the scarlet letter.
Right.
Making someone walk around with some
I've been convicted.
A sign that says that I've been convicted of something.
Yeah.
So no, California does not have any.
At least I haven't heard any movement at DMV to use license plates for that. I mean, we're already being overwatched tremendously when you bring up license plates, because we have license plate readers at certain intersections
all over the city.
And you don't have to be doing wrong for them to gather information about it.
Yes.
So if you can imagine, someone just getting a map of where you've been driving, for the last 2 days, what streets you've been through, intersections and things like that. That's what a license plate reader can do at any intersection. So, and those, they're not unconstitutional. And the big reason is because they're in the public.
Supposedly they can see no more than what the eye can see. The difference is, though, they are capturing hundreds of thousands of license plates
and the movement of people
where you're going.
So but yet it doesn't violate privacy yet, I say,
because it's in the public.
Yeah. Exactly. So anything you do in the public.
And you should almost assume at this day and age that anything that you do in public is being recorded.
Yeah.
We've talked about there are cameras everywhere. Yep. Even if they aren't cameras that are owned by law enforcement or the city or the county.
Right.
Individual home cameras are being used. Yep. And people who have surveillance cameras on their homes can register them with the law enforcement agency, such that if an incident happens in their neighborhood, law enforcement can then they know which homes have video, and they can contact them to see if their camera captured anything. And so we say that to say that, this just isn't a day and age where you're going to get away with something that happens in the public. And
it could be, it could be something that's, I'm not going to say simple and easy, but let's just say you get into it with a neighbor or some person, and the camera catches hey, get out of here, or doing this or something, and nothing really happens, not really a crime, but they turn it into the police, and it looks like somebody's doing something, and
or
because it doesn't have the whole story.
or
So
some crime occurs and the
and you're
crime
near,
isn't
yeah,
captured, but a person is captured that's near it. And so
right,
you can have a situation where you have someone who is accused of a crime that they really did not do. That wrong
right,
place,
wrong
wrong
time.
time. Miriam
Ohio.
says she believes that in Ohio they have those particular plates.
Okay.
Well, the residents of Ohio should be opposed to that
Yes.
because it's singling people out,
Right.
and for something that happened that could have happened to anyone. The
Well, first they're
DUI,
misdemeanors.
anyone. Well, it's
Usually,
a misdemeanor
yeah.
if it's the first time, and anyone can get a first time DUI because they had a glass of wine or a couple glasses of wine with dinner. They didn't think they were impaired. They got in their car and drove,
Right.
but they forgot to use their turn signal, or for whatever reason, the officer stopped.
Second offense, third offense would be misdemeanor. So it's only the fourth offense within 10 years that it jumps up to a felony. Or if you have an accident and injure someone, then it can come in as a felony. But that's, it's still, it's something on a criminal record that doesn't have to be displayed in public, so to speak.
And we live in a day and age of technology. So if someone wants to know something about you, there are enough research, Google resources out there that they can find that out. But to just have it, a license plate that is specifically saying this person is a DUI person.
Right. Or that the officer can recognize it. Think about it. It may be something like your registration tag. If the color indicates the year.
The officer can run whatever plate he wants, and it will come up to the officer. But it's a different thing to just advertise it to the general public. And I wonder, who are they likely to be giving these license plates to? Are they giving them to everyone that has DUIs, or just a certain subset of the public? We have a question from Sheepdog Protector. Do you guys have power? Get the police officer text and phone info.
Now, I believe. Now, first, just to start off, realize this: your cell phone is like your home. Do not give up your cell phone. Do not give up the code. If they're going to take it, they will take it, and they will need to get a warrant in order to get information from it and your cell phone. Now, I think what she's talking about is cops a lot of times use their cell phones at scenes to take pictures or record things. They're making calls all the time.
If they are using a department cell phone and they are using it for the purposes of documenting the crime, we may be able to get those records. If it is their personal cell phone, it's going to take a deeper delve to be able to get those records. Now, law enforcement, if internal affairs is investigating that officer, they will get those documents. But I believe the officers may have signed something in their contract where those type of investigations.
They agree to give up that kind of thing if ever questioned.
Yes.
Because sometimes what happens is they're using their private phone at the same time, as using the official phone that they may have, and sometimes it can get confusing, or they can say things on the private line that they wouldn't say on the other, and it may be. But we're hoping. I'll tell you, the best thing in the world are the body cams. The body cams are they're absolutely great. It's almost as if every case, if there are body cams, I don't care what the case is, if there are body cams, you kind of want to get it, because it's the stuff that you don't see that is valuable to you. It's the stuff
that's not written in the report. Right. So the officer's going to write the report in a way that is most favorable for the prosecution. when we get the body cams, we sometimes find a number of discrepancies in their description of what happened versus what actually happened.
True.
We
and you know what? Recently, the lady in the case in Solano County, they were protesting just on the 15th here on the steps of the Capitol in her case.
We talked about that one last time, where she was stopped and
her father and her 3 kids and stuff. And that is, it's just amazing. If you got to get online and watch the video, because the officers clearly lie, and they cut a video to where they show what happened, and then they show the officer's explanation, and it just clearly lies. And they're on the body cam. Their own body cams are telling them.
Are you saying the released version that the law enforcement agency released? Because sometimes when they release, they don't release the full video. Is this a redacted version?
Oh, no. This was redacted by the attorneys and put out there on the web.
Okay.
By
the defense attorneys.
By the defense attorneys, gotcha. Or at least the civil attorneys.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. Because they did, end up not filing charges, of course.
So. We do. No charges against her because she had committed no crime.
But she has a civil suit that they just filed, and they were rallying here on the 15th this week at I forget what time it was, but the NAACP here and what is it? Justice to Jobs, or all of us are not. Another social organization. We're sponsoring that.
So we do have a question. Here from a viewer that says, I've been trying to get my driver's license back. I was informed by DMV it's revoked. I assumed I could get a restricted license with the interlocked. I'm enrolled in the SB 38, but they said since I refused the sobriety test that they revoke it for 2 years.
Right.
I thought I would be able to get a temporary driving privilege if I enrolled in SB 38 and got the SR 22 and the interlock device.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the refusal.
Now
that causes the problem here.
This person indicates that they did a blood test at the jail, but not in the field.
Oh yeah.
So because it was a second, if she refused that preliminary alcohol screening test, that's why they can take the license for 2 years?
No. Here's why. All right. Now we're mixing in the DMV, which what she said was they called it a refusal.
Yes.
Okay. This is why when they ask you to take a blood or breath test, the official blood or breath, you cannot refuse that at all. On the back of your DL-44, your right to drive a car in this state says that if an officer asks you to test, you must do so. The problem is that if an officer says, will you take a blood test, will you take a breath test, and if you say no, I'm not doing it for whatever reason you want to say no, then they will call that a refusal. And you don't hear, there's no bells and whistles going off. This is a refusal. No, all they do is they say, okay, that's fine. We'll just go get a warrant. And they'll go get a warrant in about 10 minutes. They do it electronically. They send it to the judge. Judge comes back and says, take that blood. And then that's when they're going to bring you down, get a phlebotomist, and they're going to take the blood. It does not have to be violent. It does not have to be, you don't have to say anything else. All you had to have done is said, I'm not taking the test.
So what if it's a second DUI?
Yeah.
And the person doesn't take the preliminary alcohol screening test.
Right.
But they say, I will take the official test when you take me down.
You must do that.
But the officers then, they inform the person, if you don't take that test, we will get a warrant.
Yes.
And then instead of offering the test, they actually go and get the warrant and put in the report that the person refused.
You're going to take the test. This is why I say at all costs, the only test you want to take is a blood test. You always want to take a blood test.
But do you understand how it seems that it seems like the officers made it a refusal? The person said, I will take the official test. The officers informed them, if you don't take the official test, we will get a warrant.
Yeah.
The person said, I will take the official test.
Right.
The officers then went and got a warrant.
But they have to give you the choice of of breath or blood. Now, those are the things that you can fight in your DMV hearing when it comes up. Now, a second offense, remember, if it's more than 3 years between the one that you have now and the prior one, you're not on probation for a DUI. So it's back to step one, where they have to ask you. You see, first, before bringing up a warrant, they've got to tell you, because this is going to come up at this point in time. Look, they're going to bring out the black box and they're going to say, hey, blow in this thing. When you say no, no, thank you, then they have to arrest you. That's when they're going to put cuffs on. Once they put the cuffs on, they must then say, hey, you've been arrested. You don't have a right to have an attorney. You got to take a test.
But what if the
Which one you want to
officers
take?
lie and say that I refused to take the actual test
Yeah.
when I did not?
Well, that's why you will always be saying, I want to take the blood test. I want to take the blood test.
Is that a case where during the DMV hearing that the person should have requested the body cams?
Well, sure.
Or the footage from the booking area to see what was really said.
Because usually that's going to happen in the field, because this is going to happen prior to them putting the cuffs on. You see, the cuffs will come on. When the cuffs come on, you're arrested. Okay? And prior to that, you do not have to take a test. But when the cuffs come on, that's when the officer has to say, breath or blood. And that's when you're hollering, oh, blood, all day. So you see the cuffs go on, you can say, I'm willing to do a blood test. That's it. I'm willing to do a blood test. Now, the only way it can become a refusal from there is if they say, there are no phlebotomists employed tonight in order to take your blood. Then they have to offer the remaining test, then the breath test. So then you take the breath test, or vice versa. I want to do a breath test. Shouldn't do it, but machine's broke. We have no machine to go to, so you got to take blood. A lot of people believe, well, I chose breath, therefore, how can it be a refusal? No.
So if the one option is not available,
right, you must take the other
option.
And that's where people get caught up into thinking, well, I did agree to a test, but you didn't agree to the remaining test. So always bleed, always. Yes.
We have another question. Yeah. Can civilians buy body cams? I don't know that you can buy probably the exact same type of camera that the law enforcement officers have, but there are cameras on the market for civilians to use. Those GoPro type cameras,
pens
that record. Yeah. So there are miniature cameras on the market that can be used by civilians as well. And the pen camera may be a good one because you could have that recording and no one really know.
Exactly. And like I think you can even do them like a brooch, Yeah.
They come in all sizes. Yeah. Very, 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 very small.
And if you know someone in law enforcement, or at least who might be able to get them. But I think it's a contract though with the department. So they're provided as a result of the department. They're like a piece of equipment.
Specifically for law enforcement agencies to use.
They're at least sold to the department. So
you may not be able to get one of those, but you certainly can get a miniature camera that can record fairly undetected.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And go ahead.
Oh no.
No, I was just going to finish up with the whole the refusal thing. Is that you really got to be knowing this. Look, if an officer says this to you at any point, what have you been drinking? Or what have you been smoking? Are you high? When they say that to you, you're probably going to go down. Okay? You're probably going to go no matter what else happens, because you're going to refuse the reindeer games. You're going to refuse all the things that they're going to try to build up for evidence. So they have no idea. Do you have alcohol? Do you have drugs? They have no idea because you have kept quiet. The only thing you've got to do when that happens is say, I want to take a blood test. I want to take a blood test. I'm not refusing a blood test. Because the way they get around things is they'll say, oh, well, you got to take this and this. Well, I already took the little black box. Some people confuse the PAS device. Well, I already did the breath test. And they'll be like, no, you don't. You have to do this. And then they get you into the talking argument thing. And then you get mad, or you're mad already. And then you don't want to do anything. You see? And so just know when the cuffs go on, bleed. Just bleed. That's all. Really, just
And
that.
by that,
The
he
easiest
means
way to think of it. Choose a blood test.
Choose the
Just
blood
know,
test.
okay.
But remember, if the blood test is not available, then you do have to
The
do
remaining
breathalyzer.
tests. Exactly.
Lawman,
Yes.
I forgot to tell you that I actually have to exit early today.
Oh,
So
well, we're
I
almost
am
through
going
anyway.
to
But
sideshow out of here.
okay.
It's been great.
Well,
Same
yeah.
place,
Same time next time.
Friday
Yes.
at 6 p.m.
Yes, definitely. And stay alive. And thank goodness. What happened on the election? I don't even know what happened.
Oh,
Do we have a
can talk about
governor?
that. We do have a governor. Our governor remained Governor
Woohoo.
Newsom.
All right.
Yes.
Now we just got to get the Lee Elder guy to do that reparation thing that I'm
Okay.
talking about.
I'm going to leave Keith to talk about that.
Well, I don't have too much time to talk about that, but
Thank you. Good
see
night.
you later. But what I'm talking about is this Lee Elder guy, right? He's come to prominence here in California by running for governor this last time. And one of the things that he did near the election is he says that slave owners should get reparations. Okay, slave owners, because at the time, slaves were property. Government took their property, therefore, government owes them. Now, the government can take property at any time, adverse possession, things like that, and they don't really have to pay people. Okay, they can actually, if they're justified, they can take your property. So it isn't that they must be paid off. And then he's forgetting that during Reconstruction, they did pay off people who lost revenue as a result of losing the labor. But that was quickly revamped when they started arresting us and making us work for free because of the laws that changed. So if he wants, I say this, if he wants to say, hey, give them reparations, then I'm saying, and that's, I'll be for it. I say sign that bill, because here's what you got to do. Load that bill in the back end then with reparations from individuals who are descendants of slaves. Oh, slave owners can get their cut, but we've got to get our cut too. And our cut should involve giving us land whereby we have infrastructure built, we have a place that we can call our own. And I'm gonna tell you, irony is really weird. I'm watching an interview of Malcolm X in Berkeley in 1963, where he's talking about what would be a proper reparation in a way. And he also stressed that, look, it's not just the money and things like that. It's having a sovereign place. It's having land. That's the most important thing in regards to reparations. That we, and from his standpoint at the time, being a Black Muslim, they did not promote integration. And so in that realm, he's saying, look, you have to give us our own sovereign place. You should provide all of the infrastructure and everything we need in order to be able to live peacefully and away from white people. And that was his idea back then. And I've been saying that we have U.S. territories, Virgin Islands, Barbados, Puerto Rico, where the United States really treats them like they don't want them. And so in that respect, then that would be perfect island lands to grant to us in order to have as that land base and build it up, and then create the infrastructure, provide a monetary amount for each and every individual, whether it's 13 million, 15 million of us or whatever. And then that would be proper reparations. And that should be in any bill, anything that they pass, whereby they're going to pay the slaveholders because they lost their property. And if we know how politics works, somebody has a bill and they say, well, you know what, we'll pass that bill, but you better put this in it. You better stuff it with this, And I think that is a way that we get a Black guy who stands out here and says, give money to the slaveholders, but yet we've got to pack that bill in the end with a whole bunch of stuff, especially land, to the descendants of slaves. And that would be a proper reparation. And what's wonderful about it is that I think America will buy it. I think they really, really will then buy it because then they have the separation that they want. We have our own sovereign areas and we've been paid so that you can maintain dual citizenship. You stay here in America with your wealth and everything you've got, but yet you also have an island paradise that you can live in if you like. So that's what I mean when it comes to Lee Elder and the things that he had to say is that I think he is the guy who can probably sell that to them because he is one of them in a way. So um, that's what's happening. Just a thought that I'm throwing out there and just seeing because everywhere I throw that out, people kind of, they look up and go, that might not be that bad. And I ask everybody to toss that around, talk to your friends about it, and say, what if America gave us the territories? What if they said, this is your sovereign area here? We could trade with other nations. We could do whatever we wanted to with other nations. We have a built-in industry already there, tourism. So we just need to maintain. We just need to uh, keep going. And if they're going to push for reparations for slaveholders, then we push that bill and say, well, then you better pack it in the back end and take care of us. All right, it is time. I thank you all for hanging around and listening to us. It's always a pleasure to share stories, to share thoughts, and anything subject matter that we can bring up and talk about, we will. We generally like to start off and talk about the court process. So all you'd have to do is just give us a scenario and we'll talk about it. So I know she's not here, but you're seeing Courtside with Lawman and Carmen B. And please like us. Please tell people about us. Show us later on during the week. And every Friday at 6 p.m., come on back and join us live. Okay. We have a good time doing this. But the better part is we're feeling that we need to do this and educate individuals. And that's the most important thing that we could possibly do. So I thank you once again. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe out there, all of our people, and live our lives. Take care.